You spent decades doing the right things. You paid into your national insurance. You managed the mortgage through interest rate rises that would have broken a less disciplined person. You kept the family fed and clothed and educated through decades that took everything from you and gave back slowly. You showed up when showing up was hard. You delayed and sacrificed and stayed the course when every instinct said otherwise. And now you are here, in retirement or close enough to feel it arriving, with something you have not genuinely had since your 20s, financial choice. The mortgage is gone or nearly gone. The children are established. The career demands have lifted. And for the first time in 40 years, the money you earn or receive does not have a predetermined destination before it arrives. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice says, I deserve this, I earned this, it is finally my turn. That voice is not wrong, but here is what nobody tells you at the moment when that voice gets loudest. Some of the purchases that feel most like rewards in retirement are the ones that quietly become the heaviest financial burdens of your remaining years. Not because you were foolish, not because you were reckless, but because the hidden costs of certain purchases are systematically never explained at the moment of sale. And by the time the full picture becomes clear, the money is already gone. This video is about 5 specific purchases that British retirees make with excitement and regret with consistency. I'm going to show you exactly why each one feels right, exactly what goes wrong, exactly what it costs in ways the sales pitch never mentions, and exactly what to do instead. Stay to the end, because the information in this video could protect more of your retirement than almost any other financial decision you make this year. Part 1. Why smart British retirees still make bad purchases. There is a psychological pattern that retirement triggers in even the most financially disciplined people in Britain, and understanding it is the first step to protecting yourself from it. For decades, your spending was governed by a set of invisible constraints: the mortgage repayment, the children's school trips and university costs, the commute, the work wardrobe, the future you were quietly and patiently building across 40 years of employment. Every purchase was weighed against a backdrop of obligation and limited disposable income. Then retirement arrives, the obligations shift, and for the first time in 4 decades, the primary voice in your financial decision-making is not obligation, it is desire. Financial planners who work with British retirees call this the permission gap. It is the period, often the first 2 to 5 years of retirement, when people who spent their entire adult lives deferring pleasure suddenly feel not just allowed, but genuinely obligated to spend on things they always wanted. The holiday property they drove past on family trips to Cornwall, the luxury vehicle that represented everything they had quietly worked toward, the kitchen renovation that was always 5 years away and finally is not. These are not impulsive purchases in the reckless sense. They are the culmination of decades of deferred dreaming, which makes them feel not just acceptable, but profoundly earned. The problem is that desire-driven purchases in retirement operate on a fundamentally different financial logic than desire-driven purchases at 45. At 45, a financial mistake has a recovery mechanism: future income. At 65, on a fixed or reduced income, a significant financial mistake has a much narrower recovery window and a much longer consequence tail. There is no salary increase coming to absorb the error. There is no bonus to cover the gap. The decision made in the showroom or at the sales presentation in January shapes the financial reality of every month that follows for years. Identity is the second force driving retirement regret purchases, and it is more powerful than most people recognize. For 40 years, your professional identity provided a framework for who you were and what you deserved. When that identity shifts at retirement, many people unconsciously reconstruct their sense of self through possessions. The luxury car communicates, I'm still successful. The timeshare in Lanzarote communicates, I have arrived. The kitchen renovation communicates, this home finally reflects who I am. These are not shallow motivations. They are deeply human responses to a genuine identity transition, but they are expensive responses, and they tend to generate regret in direct proportion to how much they were purchased for the signal rather than the substance. Boredom is the third driver that almost no financial content addresses, honestly. The first months of retirement carry an euphoric freedom that gradually, for many people, gives way to a low-grade restlessness that consumer culture is perfectly designed to exploit. The timeshare presentation, the kitchen showroom, the luxury car dealership, the coastal property listing, all of these exist in an ecosystem specifically calibrated to intercept people at the precise moment when novelty feels necessary and cost feels secondary. Understanding that the restlessness of early retirement is a temporary adjustment phase, not a permanent condition requiring a £100,000 solution, is one of the most financially protective realizations available to a newly retired British person. The mathematics of the UK context make all of this more urgent than it might first appear. The Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association's February 2025 figures show that a single person in the UK needs £31,700 per year to achieve a moderate retirement standard, and £43,900 for a comfortable one. The full new state pension in the 2026 to 27 tax year pays £12,548 per year. That gap, nearly £19,200 per year for a single person at the moderate standard, must come from private pensions, savings, or investments. Every large discretionary purchase in the first years of retirement makes that gap harder to close for every year that follows. Part 2. The hidden maths. Nobody shows you. Before we name the 5 purchases, you need a mathematical framework that permanently changes how you evaluate any large purchase in retirement. Most people think about big purchases in terms of the price tag. Financial advisors who work with British retirees think about them in terms of total ownership cost combined with opportunity cost. The difference between those two numbers is almost always shocking and almost always in the wrong direction. Here's how the framework works. Take any large purchase you are considering and calculate 3 numbers. First, the true annual ownership cost, not just the purchase price or the monthly payment, but insurance, maintenance, storage, taxes, ongoing fees, and depreciation combined. Second, the honest annual usage, measured in actual days or hours of real use, not the aspirational version of how often you imagine using it. Third, the opportunity cost, what that same capital would generate if invested conservatively over the next 10 to 15 years. Here is what that looks like in British numbers. £25,000 invested conservatively at 5.5% annual growth over 12 years grows to approximately £47,000. That means every £25,000 discretionary purchase at 62 carries a hidden cost of approximately £22,000 in foregone growth over 12 years, in addition to whatever it costs to own and operate the purchase itself. The price tag in the showroom is never the real price. The real price includes everything the money could have become if it had been left alone. Fixed income reality amplifies every financial mistake in ways that working-age people simply do not feel. When you are earning a salary, an unexpected £2,000 repair bill is painful but survivable. When you are living on a state pension of £12,548 per year, supplemented by a modest drawdown pension, that same £2,000 bill may require pension withdrawal that reduces your account balance for all future years and may push your total income above a tax threshold in ways your monthly budget had not accounted for. The retirement living standards remind us that even the minimum retirement standard requires £13,400 per year for a single person. The state pension alone does not cover it. Every large purchase that drains savings without delivering genuine lasting value makes the gap between income and need wider for every year of retirement that follows. With UK life expectancy at age 65 now standing at approximately 21 years for men and 23 years for women, according to ONS data, that gap can compound across 2 decades of consequences. Part 3. The 5 purchases. Purchase 1, the timeshare. If there is one purchase on this entire list where UK financial regulators, consumer protection agencies, and independent charities agree with complete and unusual unanimity, it is the timeshare. The Financial Conduct Authority has issued repeated warnings. Action Fraud maintains active alerts. The Timeshare Consumer Association has documented the pattern for decades. And yet the sales machine continues because it is extraordinarily effective. The dream is genuinely compelling. A guaranteed week each year at a beautiful resort in the Canaries or the Mediterranean, a fixed holiday that belongs to your family, requiring no last-minute booking, no price fluctuation, no uncertainty. You saw the resort on holiday. The apartments were beautiful. The pool was exceptional. The presentation was delivered by a personable, informed salesperson in a sunlit room on the 3rd day of a lovely break, when your defenses were low and your desire for more of exactly this feeling was at its highest. It felt like the most natural decision in the world. Here is what that presentation systematically never mentioned. Action Fraud, the UK's official national reporting centre for fraud run by the City of London Police, documented over 1,150 times share recovery fraud reports in just 6 months, with victims aged between 50 and 81 losing an average of £14,000 each. That figure covers only secondary fraud targeting existing owners. The National Timeshare Helpline UK reported in 2023 that criminal organisations based in the UK, Tenerife, and mainland Spain were defrauding timeshare owners of over £300,000 every single week. More than 600,000 people in the UK currently own timeshares, according to Lincoln Green solicitors, and a significant proportion no longer use them. They remain trapped, paying annual maintenance fees they cannot exit without paying still more. Annual maintenance fees on UK timeshares typically run between £600 and £1,500 per year, rising at approximately 4% annually. A timeshare purchased at 62 with fees of £800 per year will carry fees of approximately £1,440 per year by the time the owner is 75, whether the property is used or not. whether the owner is healthy enough to travel or not, and whether the exchange program delivers the promised flexibility or not. The hidden cost calculation over 15 years is devastating. An £18,000 purchase price, plus an average of £1,100 per year in maintenance fees, rising at 4% compounded, produces a total cost of approximately £35,000 over 15 years. If the timeshare is used for an average of 1 week per year, that is 105 days of use over 15 years. The cost per day of actual use is approximately £333 before flights, transfers, or spending money. A flexible, self-catered apartment booking in the same destination for the same week costs a fraction of that with zero ongoing obligation. The psychological trap is what the industry creates through what planners call the sunk cost acceleration. Once you have spent $18,000 or $22,000 or £30,000 on a timeshare contract, the psychological pressure to use it to justify the expense creates a peculiar stress that is the exact opposite of the freedom the purchase was supposed to provide. People describe planning holidays out of obligation rather than desire. They describe the anxiety of discovering the exchange program cannot deliver the week or location they need. They describe the moment they first tried to exit the contract and were quoted £10,000 by a company that guaranteed nothing. They describe paying that company and still being in the contract 2 years later. The concrete alternative is simple and requires no compromise on holiday quality. A fully serviced holiday apartment or hotel suite in the same destination, booked flexibly through legitimate channels, costs between £1,000 and £2,500 per week depending on location and standard, with zero ongoing obligation, zero maintenance fees, zero exit costs, and complete freedom to choose a different destination every year. A couple who spends £2,000 per year on a flexible European holiday for 15 years spends £30,000 on genuine experiences with full freedom. A couple who bought a timeshare at the same point spends £35,000 or more on a product they cannot exit, cannot sell at any meaningful value, and may eventually pay again to escape. Purchase 4. Downsizing too quickly to the wrong property. Downsizing done thoughtfully and at the right moment is one of the most financially powerful moves available to a British retiree. Rightmove data shows that homeowners who downsize from 5-bedroom to 3-bedroom properties outside London can release an average of £498,687 before moving costs. Inside London, that figure rises to over £1 million. Done well, downsizing is transformational. Done in haste, to the wrong property in the wrong location, driven by the permission gap rather than a fully considered plan, it becomes one of the most expensive mistakes of retirement. Not because downsizing was wrong, but because it was rushed. The Saga research published in June 2024 surveyed over 1,000 customers and found that nearly 1 in 5 over 50 owner-occupiers had already downsized, representing approximately 4 million people across the UK, an average of 200,000 downsizers per year. Of those who moved, the most common reason was reducing the time and cost of maintenance. That is a sound motivation. What Saga and the Homeowners Alliance 2025 survey both document is a consistent pattern of downsizers who moved to properties that failed to meet their long-term lifestyle needs, requiring a second move within 5 to 7 years. The hidden cost of a hasty downsize followed by a necessary second move is significant and specific. The average cost of a single house move in the UK, according to Unbiased, is approximately £10,000, covering solicitor fees, estate agent commission, removal costs, and stamp duty on the purchase. A couple who downsizes hastily and then must move again within 5 years because the location is wrong, the property type is unsuitable, or their health needs have changed, pays those £10,000 transaction costs twice. That is £20,000 in pure transaction friction, before any difference in property values is considered. And bungalow premiums are real. The Homeowners Alliance 2025 survey found that 38% of downsizers specifically want single-level living, while 34% who considered moving could not find a suitable property. Scarcity drives premium pricing, meaning the smaller property that was supposed to release significant equity sometimes costs nearly as much as the family home it was meant to replace. The psychological trap is what financial planners call location romanticism. The coastal town that feels like the perfect retirement destination during a summer holiday at 63 can feel isolating and inconvenient. At 72, when driving becomes difficult, GP access is 40 minutes away, and the social infrastructure of decades in one community has been left behind. The rural retreat that represented freedom at retirement can represent a logistics problem when health appointments multiply and children live 150 miles in the opposite direction. The concrete alternative is the 12-month rental test. Before committing to a permanent downsized destination, rent in that location for at least 1 full year across all seasons. Test the GP access, Test the public transport. Test the proximity to family in a genuine emergency. Test whether the community infrastructure supports the social life you need, not just the one you imagine having. The rental cost of 12 months is an investment against a potentially catastrophic mismatch. The downsize that happens 18 months later, with full seasonal and logistical information, is almost always a better financial and lifestyle decision than the one made within 6 months of retirement in the first flush of freedom. Purchase 5. Large financial gifts to adult children. I want to acknowledge directly that this item is different from the other 4 on this list. The timeshare, the luxury car, the renovation, the wrong downsize, these are purchases you make for yourself. The financial support of your adult children is something you do for love, and that distinction matters because it means the standard financial analysis feels insufficient and even cold when applied to it. So let me start not with the maths, but with the outcome, because the outcome is what actually matters to everyone in this conversation. The Quilter Retirement Lifestyle Report, which surveyed over 5,000 UK retirees, found that the average retiree currently spends around £2,500 per year supporting younger family members, comprising £1,323 in direct gifts and £1,175 towards education costs. Among younger, higher-income retirees, that figure rises to over £10,000 per year. Sun Life's Life. Well-Spent 2025 report found that the average cash gift from over 50s, specifically for a child's house deposit, is £30,634. Audley Village's UK retirement statistics found that 23% of UK baby boomers over 58 still financially support their children on an ongoing basis. None of these people are irresponsible. They are loving parents navigating a housing market and a cost of living environment that genuinely makes it harder for younger generations to establish financial independence. The motivations are entirely recognizable. The pattern that emerges from the financial planning literature, however, is consistent and sobering. Large gifts made from retirement capital, particularly house deposit contributions drawn from pension lump sums or savings, remove capital that cannot be replaced on a fixed income. The capital does not return. The opportunity cost compounds for the rest of retirement, and the retiree who gave generously at 65 and then faced unexpected care costs, health expenses, or property maintenance bills at 78 frequently becomes financially dependent on the same children they were trying to help. The gift that felt like security for the family can become a source of financial stress for everyone. The pattern almost never begins with a large request. It begins with something small and genuinely urgent: a car repair, a shortfall on a deposit, a difficult month during a redundancy. You help because you can, and because it would feel wrong not to. The child feels relief. You feel useful. The dynamic is established. What happens next, documented consistently in UK financial planning literature, is that the next request comes sooner and for a larger amount, because the previous help resolved the immediate crisis without addressing the underlying financial behavior that created it. Your willingness to help has, without anyone intending it, reduced the urgency your child feels to build their own financial resilience. Over time, the transfers normalize. They become a regular feature of both your budget and your child's financial plan, neither of which was designed to sustain them indefinitely. The concrete alternative is what planners call the clarity conversation. Before any gift above £5,000, a genuine conversation needs to happen, not a transaction. A conversation that covers what you can sustainably provide without compromising your own 20-year financial security. What the current HMRC rules on the 7-year gifting period mean for your estate planning. Whether a structured arrangement, such as a recorded interest-free loan with a realistic repayment schedule, might serve both parties better than an outright gift that becomes expectation. And what your own financial security needs to look like at 78 for you to remain independent. The most protective financial decision a British parent over 60 can make for their children's long-term future is to ensure their own financial independence is not compromised. A self-funding parent at 80 is not a burden. A parent who gave away retirement capital at 65 and then needs residential care at 79 is one of the most difficult and expensive situations an adult child can navigate. The conversation that protects against that outcome is not a rejection of love. It is one of the most loving things you can do for your family. Part 4. The alternative frameworks. The framework that prevents retirement purchase regret is not deprivation. It is not endless analysis. It is 3 specific principles that replace permission gap decisions with intentional choices you'll be glad you made at 75. The first and most important principle is rent before you own, applied to every major lifestyle purchase. Before buying the holiday apartment, rent in that exact location for a full year across all seasons. Before committing to the luxury car, take a 12-month lease on the vehicle you want and live with it through a full year of actual use. Before the kitchen renovation, live with your kitchen as it is for 12 months. and identify what genuinely and consistently bothers you versus what simply feels improvable in the abstract. The rental or trial period is not delay for its own sake. It is the most reliable predictor of whether reality matches the dream, and it consistently costs less than 1% of what the full purchase would cost if the reality turns out not to match. The 90-day rule is the second principle, and it applies to any purchase above £10,000. Write down the purchase you're considering, the full price, the estimated annual ownership cost, and the reason you want it. Seal it. Open it in 90 days. If the desire is still as strong, if the reasons still feel compelling, if the financial picture still makes sense, proceed with complete confidence. If the desire has softened, if the reasons feel less urgent, if a different option has emerged, you have saved yourself a potentially significant financial mistake at zero cost. The purchases that survive 90 days of deliberate consideration in the absence of sales pressure tend to be the right ones. The purchases that feel urgent right now and must be decided today are almost never the right ones. The flexibility principle is the third framework shift. At this stage of life, the most valuable financial asset you possess is optionality. The ability to make different choices as health changes, as family situations change, as desires evolve across what may be 2 or more decades of retirement. Every large illiquid purchase reduces that optionality. Cash flow security is the possession that delivers the most reliable retirement satisfaction, and it is the one that almost no one discusses in terms of desire or aspiration because it is invisible. Ask a British retiree who has it what retirement feels like. The words they use consistently are free, calm, flexible, unworried. Ask a retiree who has depleted it, chasing the visible symbols of retirement success. The words are stressed, trapped, regretful, afraid. The purchase that most consistently produces the first description is not the timeshare, the luxury car, or the renovation. It is the decision not to make those purchases, to keep the capital liquid and growing, and to buy the experiences rather than the obligations. Part 6. The philosophical reframe. There's a discovery that a significant number of British retirees make in the years after making and then reversing one of the decisions we have discussed. It is worth naming because it reframes the entire conversation. The discovery is this. The freedom they were seeking when they bought the timeshare, the luxury car, the renovated home, the coastal bungalow, that freedom was real. The desire for it was completely legitimate. What they discovered is that the freedom they were actually seeking was not contained in the possession at all. It was contained in the financial security and the absence of obligation that the possession consumed. The retiree who eventually exited the timeshare, whatever it cost them to do so, consistently describes the aftermath as lighter than they expected. Not just financially lighter, but existentially lighter. The annual holiday is no longer governed by a fixed week on a contract. Every destination in Europe is available. The maintenance fee notification in February no longer triggers the quiet anxiety of a commitment that costs money regardless of use. The capital that was locked in the contract is now liquid and flexible. The Stanford Center on Longevity in the United States documents that retirees who simplify their ownership footprint in their late 60s report significantly higher life satisfaction scores than peers who maintain complex, high-maintenance asset portfolios independent of actual wealth levels. This finding crosses cultural contexts. The correlation between owning less and worrying less is not coincidental. It is structural. Possessions that require ongoing management, ongoing cost, and ongoing decisions create ongoing cognitive and emotional weight that retirement was supposed to relieve, not add. Cash flow security is the possession that delivers the most reliable British retirement satisfaction. And it is the one that carries no price tag in the showroom, no sales presentation, and no commission for anyone to sell you. A retiree with £22,000 per year in secure income, no ongoing ownership obligations, and £30,000 in liquid savings is financially and psychologically freer than a retiree with £28,000 per year in income, a timeshare maintenance fee, a luxury car finance payment, and a renovation loan. The numbers are higher in the second scenario. The freedom is lower every month. Ask a British retiree who has genuine cash flow security what their retirement feels like. The words they use consistently are free, calm, flexible, unworried. I can respond to whatever happens. I'm not trapped by anything. Ask a retiree who has depleted that security chasing the visible symbols of a successful retirement. The words are stressed, trapped, regretful, afraid of what comes next. The purchase that most consistently produces the first description is not the timeshare or the luxury saloon or the grand renovation. It is the decision not to make those purchases, to keep the capital liquid and earning, to buy the experience in Portugal rather than owning the week in Lanzarote, to drive the well-chosen 3-year-old vehicle rather than finance the new one, to make the targeted accessibility modifications rather than the full luxury renovation. These are not sacrifices. They are the decisions that make the story of your retirement one you are genuinely proud of at 75. Part 7. The 7-question filter. Before any purchase above £10,000, work through these 7 questions. They are not rhetorical, they are diagnostic, and the answers will tell you with remarkable clarity whether a given purchase is likely to deliver what you're hoping for. Question 1. Would I still want this in exactly 90 days if nothing about my situation has changed, the offer is still available, and no salesperson is involved? If the answer is a confident yes, the desire has genuine staying power. If the answer is uncertain, the urgency driving the decision is manufactured. A manufactured urgency always serves the seller, not the buyer. No legitimate financial product or property expires in 48 hours. Question 2. What is the honest annual cost of owning this, including maintenance, insurance, storage, taxes, fees, and depreciation? Write down the real number. Then ask, can I sustain that annual cost if my pension income drops by 15%, or if I face a health expense I have not planned for? Financial stress in retirement almost never comes from the purchase price. It comes from the ongoing annual commitment that the purchase price locked in permanently. Question 3. Can I manage this physically and logistically at age 75? A holiday property in a rural location requires driving. A luxury vehicle requires dealer proximity for specialist servicing. A large family home retained past its practical usefulness requires maintenance capacity that diminishes with age. Ask honestly whether the purchase works for the version of you that is 10 years older than the person signing the paperwork today. Question 4. Does this purchase create freedom or does it create obligation? Freedom means options remain open. Obligation means options close. A fully paid off home with no second property creates freedom. A timeshare contract with annual maintenance fees and a restricted exit creates obligation. A 3-year-old reliable vehicle owned outright creates freedom. A luxury car finance agreement creates obligation. Be honest about which category your specific purchase actually belongs to, not which category the sales presentation places it in. Question 5. If my financial situation changes significantly in the next 3 years, what happens to this purchase? Can I sell it quickly at a reasonable price? Can I stop paying for it without severe penalty? Can I exit the commitment without catastrophic loss? The timeshare fails this question completely. The luxury car fails it significantly. The hasty downsize to a bungalow in a premium market fails it partially. Know your exit before you enter. Every purchase has an exit. Most people do not look for it until they need it desperately. Question 6. Am I buying this for what it actually is, or for what it represents? The timeshare that represents carefree holidays. The luxury car that represents success. The kitchen renovation that represents self-reward. The house in a coastal town that represents the retirement you imagined. None of these representations are false, but none of them requires the specific purchase to be real. The carefree holiday, the sense of success, the self-reward, and the retirement you imagined can all be experienced through decisions that do not carry 5-figure price tags and decade-long maintenance obligations. Question 7. Have I run this decision past someone with no financial interest in whether I buy? Not the salesperson, not the estate agent who earns commission on the transaction, not the builder who will do the renovation. Find someone whose only interest is your genuine long-term well-being. A fee-only independent financial advisor regulated by the FCA. A trusted friend willing to say the difficult thing. A family member who will look you in the eye and tell you what they actually think rather than what they think you want to hear. The answers you receive from a genuinely disinterested person are worth more than anything you will hear in the sales environment. And the question you should ask them is simple. If this were your money and this were your retirement, would you do this? Part 5, 5 stories. Consider a couple we will call David and Patricia, both 67 from Sheffield, who retired from careers in engineering and nursing with a combined pension income of approximately £34,000 per year and £180,000 in savings. 6 months into retirement, they attended a timeshare presentation during a holiday in Lanzarote. The presentation ran 3.5 hours. The opening price was £32,000. By the end of the session, following 3 separate price reductions that each felt like a concession being made specifically for them, they signed a contract for £18,000. In year 1, they used the timeshare and genuinely enjoyed it. In year 2, they used it again. In year 3, Patricia's mother required care arrangements that made the fixed week impossible to change. They contacted the exchange program and found the alternatives either unavailable or significantly below the standard they had been shown. By year 5, they were paying £1,200 in annual maintenance fees for a product they were using every other year at best. They contacted 2 exit companies. The first quoted £9,500 with no guarantee of success. The second quoted £11,000. 7 years after purchase, David and Patricia have paid £18,000 for the original contract and £8,400 in cumulative maintenance fees, totaling £26,400. They have used the timeshare for approximately 21 days. The The cost per day of actual use is 1,257 pounds. They remain in the contract. Consider a man we will call Graham, 64, from Bristol, who retired from a senior logistics management role with a pension of £28,000 per year and £85,000 in accessible savings. Within 3 months of retiring, he purchased a £52,000 German luxury saloon, financing £40,000 of it over 4 years. In year 1, he drove it with genuine pleasure and approximately 8,000 miles. In year 2, the novelty had settled into routine. In year 3, the vehicle required a suspension repair costing £3,400 outside the warranty period. Its market value had declined to approximately £28,000, a paper loss of £24,000 on the original purchase. His comprehensive insurance was running at £2,200 per year. By the end of year 4, Graham had paid approximately £26,000 in finance repayments, lost £24,000 in depreciation, and spent £9,200 in insurance, servicing, and repairs. The total 4-year cost of ownership had exceeded £59,000 for a vehicle he used for approximately 7,000 miles per year, mileage he could have covered in a reliable 3-year-old vehicle purchased outright for £17,000. Consider a woman we will call Margaret, 66, from Guildford, who sold her 4-bedroom family home for £610,000 and downsized within 5 months of retiring to a bungalow in a coastal town she had always loved during summer holidays. The bungalow cost £385,000. Moving costs, including stamp duty, solicitors, and removals, totaled £11,400. The net equity released was approximately £213,600, significantly less than the $300,000 she had estimated, because the bungalow commanded a premium in a high-demand retirement location. Within 18 months, she had discovered that her nearest GP surgery had a 4-week wait for non-urgent appointments and was a 38-minute drive away. The town's social infrastructure was oriented towards summer visitors rather than year-round residents. In winter, it was quiet to the point of isolation. A joint condition she had managed comfortably in an established community with a local support network became significantly harder to manage alone in an unfamiliar place. In year 3, she fell during a wet winter morning and spent 4 days in a hospital 40 miles from her daughter. She listed the bungalow in year 4. It sold for £391,000 after 6 months on the market. She moved to a retirement flat near her daughter in Surrey. The second set of transaction costs, stamp duty, solicitors, and removals totaled £12,800. Between reduced equity on the original purchase, double transaction costs, and 4 years of emotional and logistical difficulty, Margaret estimates the hasty downsize cost her approximately £27,000 in direct financial terms, and 4 years she cannot recover. Consider a couple we will call Robert and Christine, both 68, from Leeds, who retired with a combined pension income of £38,000 per year and £165,000 in accessible savings. In their first year of retirement, they gave their daughter and son-in-law a £35,000 contribution toward a house deposit drawn from their pension lump sum. The decision was made from genuine love, from a clear financial surplus at that moment, and from a sincere desire to help their daughter establish herself in a housing market that had become genuinely difficult for younger generations. 2 years and 4 months later, Robert was diagnosed with a progressive musculoskeletal condition requiring private physiotherapy at £320 per month, and home modifications, including a stair rail system and bathroom adaptation, costing £14,600. The capital they had mentally allocated to health contingencies had been gifted. They managed, but the financial margins for the remainder of their retirement contracted significantly. Robert does not regret helping his daughter. What he regrets is not having run a detailed 20-year cash flow model before deciding how much to give, and not having had the honest conversation about what his own health trajectory might require. Consider a couple we will call James and Barbara, both 65, from Cheltenham, who spent £78,000 on a full kitchen extension and master bathroom renovation 9 months after James retired from a career in financial services. The renovation had been planned for years. The kitchen had felt small and dated for a decade. The bathroom was functional but nothing more. With retirement arrived and the children grown, it finally felt like the right moment. The project ran 14 weeks over schedule and came in at £78,400 against a quoted £63,500. James and Barbara enjoyed the new spaces genuinely. 3 years later, Barbara was offered early retirement from a part-time role she had maintained for income and structure and accepted it. Their combined income reduced. 4 years after the renovation, a structural issue with the property's drainage required £22,000 in remedial work that the renovation contractor had not identified during the project. Their accessible savings had been significantly reduced by the renovation cost overrun. They managed the drainage cost but used the last of their liquid financial buffer to do so. At 69, James found himself financially less flexible than he had been at 63, despite having spent the intervening years in a beautifully renovated home. The renovation he does not regret. What he regrets is not leaving a larger liquid buffer for the unexpected costs that property ownership invariably generates. Part 8. Your 7-day action plan. Day 1. List every large purchase you are currently considering or have thought about seriously in the last 6 months. Write down the full purchase price and your best honest estimate of the annual ownership cost. Do nothing else today. The act of writing it down with honest numbers rather than aspirational ones is the first step in the framework. Day 2. For each item on your list, research the true annual ownership cost using external sources rather than the figures provided by the seller. For vehicles, check honest owner reviews on forums and the RACI or AA cost calculators. For property moves, calculate full stamp duty at current UK rates, legal fees, estate agent commission, and removal costs. For renovations, find 3 independent quotes and add 20% for overrun. Replace your estimate with a research number and see how the calculation changes. Day 3. Identify any assets you currently own that belong to the categories we have discussed today. Things you paid significantly for, use infrequently, and maintain at ongoing cost. Calculate the monthly cost of keeping each one. Consider whether selling or exiting would simultaneously free up capital and reduce the low-level stress that ownership creates. The proceeds of an exit are not lost money, they are future flexibility. Day 4. Review every recurring financial commitment in your budget and honestly identify whether each one is delivering value proportional to its cost. Subscription services you rarely use, club memberships you maintain from habit, insurance policies that have not been compared to market rates in 3 years. Cancel the ones not delivering. Redirect the recovered cash flow toward your liquid reserves. Day 5. If the gifting conversation applies to your situation, begin it today. Not necessarily the entire conversation, but begin it. A message to your adult child that you would like to have an honest conversation about what you can sustainably provide and what your own financial security needs to look like over the next 20 years. Start with love and finish with clarity. The conversation that feels difficult today prevents the financial crisis that feels unbearable at 78. Day 6. Set a freedom budget. A specific monthly or annual allocation for experiences, travel, and genuine enjoyment that is fully funded, guilt-free, and bounded. £2,000 per year, or $4,000 or $6,000, whatever your income and savings honestly support. Knowing exactly what you have designated for living well makes every specific decision cleaner. It removes the guilt of spending on the things that genuinely bring joy, and the resentment of feeling that retirement is all restriction and no reward. Day 7. Apply the 90-day rule to the largest purchase you are currently considering. Write down the details, the full price, the honest annual ownership cost, the reason you want it, the exit strategy if your circumstances change. Seal it and set a calendar reminder for 90 days from today. The decision will still be available then. The property will still exist. The car will still be on the forecourt, or one very similar will be. If the purchase is still the right decision in 90 days, you will make it with complete confidence and full information rather than urgency and partial information. And if it is not, you will have protected something more valuable than whatever you were about to buy. Closing. I want to end with something I hope stays with you long after this video ends. Retirement is not the chapter of your life where you prove to the world that you succeeded. You already proved that. You did it through 40 years of national insurance contributions, mortgage payments, school runs, difficult commutes, and showing up consistently for the people who needed you. This chapter is not about demonstration. It is about enjoyment, freedom, connection, and the particular peace that comes from having enough and knowing it. The PLSA tells us that a moderate British retirement requires £31,700 per year for a single person. The state pension covers £12,548 of that. The gap of over £19,000 per year must come from what you have saved and invested across a working life. Every decision that depletes those savings without delivering genuine lasting value makes that gap harder to close for every year that follows. And with life expectancy at 65, now extending into the mid to late 80s for most British people, that gap can represent 20 years of consequences from a decision made in an afternoon. The 5 purchases we discussed today are not temptations you need to resist through willpower. They are decisions that become obvious in hindsight when you have the right framework in advance. The retiree who is still paying timeshare maintenance fees on a week they no longer use is not less intelligent than you. They simply made the decision without the information you now have. The retiree who financed a luxury car at 63 and found themselves financially constrained at 67 did not lack discipline. They lacked the specific depreciation and total cost calculation that you can now run before you walk into the showroom. Information is protection. And today you are more protected than you were an hour ago. The purchases that actually make British retirement genuinely rich are rarely the large ones. They are the holiday you took without owning the apartment you had to manage and maintain from a distance. The summer you rented in a different beautiful part of the country instead of returning to the property you owned from obligation. The grandchildren's university fund that existed because you did not spend the capital on a timeshare contract that took 7 years to exit. The flexibility you had at 72 to move closer to your children because you had not locked yourself into the wrong postcode at 63. The adult child who learned to build their own financial resilience because you loved them enough to have the honest conversation at 65 instead of the rescue at 70. These are not sacrifices. These are the decisions that make the story of your retirement one you are genuinely proud of. The window you are in right now, whether you are 62 or 68 or 74, is a window where the decisions you make about what to buy and what not to buy will shape the quality of every year that follows. Not because money is everything, but because financial security is the infrastructure of freedom. And freedom is what this chapter of your life is actually supposed to deliver. Drop a comment below and tell me your age, your city, and which purchase from this list hit closest to home for you. Whether it is one you almost made or one you already made and wish you had seen this video first. Your experience may be exactly what someone else needs to hear before they sign something they will spend years regretting. If this video delivered real value, subscribe now and turn on the bell. Because this conversation is worth continuing, and what we cover next may be the information that matters most for where you are right now.